you know. So it all worked out pretty good for sure.
Yeah,
But well, anyway, thank you so much for taking a minute out today. I appreciate it.
sure. Yeah.
And and I want to begin our conversation with what we've all lived through for the last 3.5 years, which was a global pandemic. How did you get through it, and how did it subsequently change you?
Well, it changed my professional life quite a bit because I was doing a lot of stand-up training, leadership and management training for a variety of clients, but mostly of late was NASA up at in the DC area. And of course, when COVID came out, all the live training went away
Yeah.
in person. And so I had tons of time on my hands, and that allowed me to start working on my novel. So I finished my novel during the COVID time.
Yeah.
And so that's kind of how it changed me from getting, going to work and having a bunch of students and professionals in my classrooms to working on my own, finishing up my novel.
So right now, in this current day in 2024, if you were in front of a bunch of third graders at a career day and one of the kids looked up and said, "Hey, what do you do for a living?" How would you answer that child?
Yeah, I guess I would say I do a variety of things, but mostly right now I'm doing writing uh, screenplays as well as fiction novels.
Okay. So what did you want to be in the third grade? What was your dream?
Oh, I think to be a Laker.
Okay. There you
I grew
go.
up in I grew up in Southern California,
Okay.
so be a Laker, a Dodger, or a Ram. That was
Yeah.
my dream then.
I listened to that 30 for 30 about that owner of the Clippers that fell apart and got
Yeah,
caught on tape and all of that. And they were talking about Jerry West and the beginnings of the Lakers and how all of that dynasty began. And it was fascinating, just,
Jerry West was my hero.
yeah.
He was the guy on the playgrounds that playing basketball, pickup basketball that I always pretended I was.
So from what I understand, the NBA logo is based off of him. I think it's his
That's right.
physique. Okay. That's
That's
what I
right.
thought. Yeah,
The
that's
original
cool.
one, right?
That's quite a legacy to have.
Oh boy. Yeah,
I mean,
sure.
it's better that than to be named Tommy John to be forever remembered for his surgery.
True. True. Also a former Dodger. But yeah,
Yeah,
you're right. You're right. You're right.
that's that's right. I was actually going through some old cards recently. I used to collect them when I was a kid, and I came across the Tommy John, and I just laughed at it. And I feel bad for the guy, but it's like every time you hear that, like I have kids, and I have to explain to them, why is it Tommy John? It's like he was the pitcher. He was the first one that got it.
Well, it may feel negative, but when you think about it, how many arms has he saved by that
Totally,
surgery? He was the guinea pig. So
100%.
actually, I hope he's feeling positive about that.
Yeah, absolutely. I guess it's better than the Mendoza line. That's an ugly term. Um,
Uh,
that's
referring
like a
to,
batting average that you don't want. Like there's a batting average that you don't quite get
oh,
over, and it
oh
was a
yeah,
player, Mendoza, and he wasn't good. So
yeah,
yeah,
that would be bad. That
yeah,
would
that
be
would be bad for sure.
bad.
So it sounds like you've had an interesting path. Talk to me a little bit about growing up in LA and how you got into training and eventually got into writing.
Well, yeah, I grew up in Southern Cal, and then went to junior college there, and I lived in kind of in the shadow of Disneyland in the Anaheim Buena Park area, and I wanted to get away. And so after junior college, I had relatives in Illinois, so I went to school at Northern Illinois University and graduated from there. And during that time, um, I guess I always had a hankering for travel, and so I applied to Peace Corps, and so I was accepted. And of course, we joke about it. Peace Corps people, I put down I wanted to go to Africa, and of course, they sent me to the Pacific.
Yeah.
So just the opposite, right?
That's right. I hear
So
that all the time. You never
yeah,
get sent to where you want to go. Like if you want to go to
no,
Costa Rica and sunbathe, you're not going.
you are able not to go. I mean, it's a volunteer organization, but
Yeah.
then it was great. Plus, it was the shadow of Vietnam War was going on, so many people thought we were just draft dodgers. but I had to go through two draft physicals before I could actually go overseas.
Wow.
And we always had they always had the possibility of pulling us out to go to Vietnam. Luckily, that didn't happen for me. So yeah, I was lucky. I was a volunteer in the Marshall Islands, kind of on a remote outer island near Bikini and Eniwetok, where atomic testing went on in the 50s. And so I was a teacher, English teacher. I was a journalism major in college, so I always kind of was trying to write and things like that.
Yeah.
But so I was a volunteer. It's a 2-year assignment. I stayed for an extra year, so I was a volunteer for 3 years. And during the summer, we would come into the main island, and the Marshalls have like 29 islands, and so you're kind of far remote. And the ships would only at that time would only come in every about 3 months, so we'd get mail and things like that. So it was pretty remote situation. But I was lucky; I got to travel all over the Marshalls doing teacher training. In the summer, new volunteers would come in, and so I was picked to be part of their training. So that got me into the training world. And I did, after my Peace Corps time, I stayed out in the Pacific and did training mostly for Peace Corps, and then got to go to Oman, the Middle East, and do training there. And then came back and eventually came back to the DC area. That's where all the jobs, international training jobs were.
Yeah.
Got hired by Westinghouse, so did training for Westinghouse, project management in the Middle East, Jordan, Gaza, Israel. And so that kind of started my career doing international training. So I was lucky to go to over 30 some countries throughout the my career, and wanted to stay more. I was married then and had a son and wanted to stay closer to home. So I got to do that. And then we started to do training for government agencies like Naval Surface Warfare Center and then eventually NASA. So that's a sorry to go on so long, but that's
No, no,
basically
no. I appreciate
how
it.
I got there. And
Yeah.
I think during my all these travels around the world, it just showed me kind of cool places, cool characters, and
Yeah.
that got me into writing, and mostly writing about leadership first, because that's what I was doing out there, teaching leadership and management kinds of things to a variety of folks at different levels all over the world, and that got me into writing. So I started to do more and more writing. And then a former student of mine with Navy said, "Hey, why don't we do a book together?" And that started my first book, really, of what makes you tick and what ticks you off. And
Yeah.
that got us into more and more writing. So now I'm up to, I think I have 6 books on leadership and management on Amazon, and my new novel, Finding Eden.
That's wonderful. It's almost like you're a spy out in the open with all of the places that you've been to and all of that. That's pretty cool.
I was lucky. Luckily, not dangerous, like a
Right.
spy. But yeah,
But
yeah,
a James Bond itinerary nonetheless. So that's
yeah. I
good.
was really lucky to be paid to go to these places. No question.
I haven't traveled that extensively, but I've been around enough. I actually was in a water taxi in Venice, Italy on the morning of 9/11/01. And I've been over and I've seen some wonderful things. But I'm curious, in all of your travels, what was one of the most surprisingly beautiful places that you saw that just was magical and you didn't expect it?
Well, Venice was certainly one of them for me as well. But probably the most exotic, the one that made me, after traveling all over, kind of stop and watch, was Kathmandu in Nepal.
Yeah.
um, just so different and you know something I had not been exposed to. I was doing some work in India and then took a week to go up to Nepal. That was an interesting country, I thought.
I thought I saw some pretty antiquitous things when I was in Europe, but to go to Nepal, I think when you come back to the United States, I don't know if you felt like this, but you realize how young we are.
Mm,
You
yeah,
know, I mean, on the scale of things, when you see the structures that are centuries old and the government and everything that they deal with has been around for so much longer.
I think I have found that to be very true, especially doing international training when you're trying to get folks kind of up to date with kind of the current leadership practices or strategies, but they're dealing with and they're working in systems that have not been, working too great for many, many, many years. And
Yeah,
it's really hard for them to take a risk to kind of change behaviors. So
yeah,
that was always a challenge in my training courses.
yeah. So who's been a hero for you in your life?
Oh, outside of Jerry West when I was little.
Yeah,
Um, I would. It's hard to say. I've had several. I've had a couple of great mentors who worked for Westinghouse, and then a fellow trainer of mine who was came out when I was like in the early '70s to do a training program with me, and we became lifelong friends. And so it's been, a couple of key people as opposed to some famous person who, you think of like for me, Jerry West, that you
yeah,
never met, but you kind of think they inspire you.
yeah.
But I've really been lucky to have people I've actually worked with that have been inspirations for me.
So you may have already answered this question, but if you can meet one person alive on the planet right now and spend some time with them, who would it be?
Oh, interesting question. You know, I've always been kind of in awe of how Paul McCartney, for example,
Yeah,
is so down to earth,
yeah.
being a,
Oh,
an
yeah,
idol for so long for so many of us. Um, it'd be kind of cool to sit and chat with somebody like that
yeah.
for a while. I don't know who you think.
Yeah, I agree. And I've actually, it's weird. I've had some vivid dreams like that I've met him, and it's very weird. And I remember what kind of effect that anthology series ABC put out in the 90s had on me, that was told from their perspective. And I remember at one point when when the boys came to America, they really wanted to meet Bob Dylan. And of course, once they met Bob, they all started smoking and started forgetting where they were at and what they were doing. But at one point during the interview on that series, Paul said that while he was talking to Bob, he wrote down the meaning of life in a pocket and put it in. And the next morning, he couldn't find it anywhere. And I've always wondered how cool that would be to find that slip of paper.
Yeah, really.
Paul McCartney writing down the meaning of life after meeting
Yeah,
Bob Dylan on the first trip to America.
yeah. Kind of amazing.
That
Really
would be pretty
amazing.
cool. I did catch there was a band that came through town this summer called Rain, and they cover the whole Beatles thing. Have you heard of these guys?
I saw them. My son and I went on the only cruise we were on. Well, it would probably be I don't know, 2002 or something like that. And they played on the ship.
Yeah,
And I thought, wow, they're better than I expected to be.
it's
And now I know
crazy.
they've continued on really good, really good.
Yeah. It was
Yeah,
really crazy to see all of the slices. They were playing the old like commercial clips from the
yeah,
day, just the way they choreographed it, and to see them and like all the Sergeant Peppers get up and to see that happen in front of you, the changes they made. And I think the most amazing thing in our cancel culture happy world that we live in now, those guys were just they were fine.
yeah,
They were just a bunch of guys from Liverpool that made good music.
yeah, yeah. Yeah, I've seen a couple of Ringo interviews lately, and that's again so down to earth.
Yeah.
It's kind of amazing what they
Yeah.
went through and how they are viewed by virtually everyone.
Yeah.
So down to earth. It's just kind of amazing. Yeah.
So I got a Trivial Pursuit question at one point. It said, "What of the Beatles has sold the most in their solo career?" And it's Ringo. Like,
No kidding.
yeah,
That's a
like
surprise.
you would just assume it would have to be Paul with Wings,
Yeah.
and all of those
Yeah.
things that he did.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's it's a wild thing. So are you a Dodgers fan, real quick?
Yes, I am.
Okay, so I saw their lineup the other day. They got that new guy from Seattle. It's unbelievable. I laughed. I was like, there's no way. I mean, they already had a lineup that was World Series worthy last year, and then you throw in Otani and all these other guys. It's
Well, we
crazy.
blew that last year after winning 100 games, but they're still short. I think a closer. So it, it, I get no sympathy from my non-Dodger fans,
Yeah.
buddies, with the wealth of folks that they have. But yeah, it looks really good. But the new Japanese pitcher, Dodgers, I don't know, the Dodger pitchers historically are very fragile and they all
Yeah.
get hurt through the year, from
Yeah.
Kershaw to all the rest. But and the new Japanese guy should be great, but he's haven't pitched one inning in the major leagues yet. So we shall see. But
We'll find out.
I feel good about it so far.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I saw a stat the other day that the Dodgers spent in the offseason as much money as the other 25 teams combined.
I know.
So,
I know.
we'll see. You never know. It'll be
We'll
interesting.
see. We they had it on paper last year too, but didn't do it.
Yeah.
So you never know. Yeah,
Yeah,
you got to play the game. So we shall see. But I'm
that's
looking
true.
forward to it.
There's something to be said about chemistry for sure. Um,
Definitely.
so at the end of the day, you're obviously highly motivated. What is your motivation every day? What gets you out of bed? What gets you to write and to help others and to be you, to evolve as you?
Uh, Interesting question. I'm I can't exactly put a finger on it. I think part of it was growing up having a father who was working all the time and mother who also worked. So I think that working expectation was always there with me. And certainly my Peace Corps experience where I would teach, on a little island with, 800 people on my island my first year. It's not full time. So you have to do other things besides your primary job. And so that I think has gone on as I've gotten older and had more clients. I think in the training business, there was always something to do. So I think I've been always inspired that I've got to meet the needs of my participants. These are, for the most part, very professional folks, scientists, especially at NASA, scientists and engineers. And you got to be ready. You got to be able to and be prepared. So, in addition to delivering the training or the service in my consulting practice, you have to be ready and keep up with what's going on. And now into my writing, there's so much research that goes into it was harder for me to write the novel Finding Eden than it was doing a lot of my leadership books because I had a lot of experience with leadership, not so much on, it's all about migrants run into the Mediterranean on an overcrowded boat rescue ship trying to find a safe passage. So a lot of research I had to do to go into that. So there's always something that needed to be done. So I think that mentality has stuck with me as I've gotten older.
Yeah. I've always been an avid reader. One of the first books I read was Grapes of Wrath by Steinbeck. And I'm revisiting him now, and I just can't believe the way the economy of words that he would get to. He would get right to the jugular really, really quick. He would build suspense in a way that was just so organic, you know. What was
Oh
the
yeah.
first book? What was the first book for you when you were growing up that really resonated even to
Ooh,
this day that you loved?
ooh. Um, I did I remember in elementary school, we had a lot of reading to do. And on the bulletin board, we each had our name on a little paper rocket. And as we would do a book report, it would zoom up. And I always wanted to be at the top. So there was tons of them. But I think like a Treasure Island or something like that. It was one of the classic, books was one of the first ones that stuck in my mind.
Yeah,
Um, and I didn't kind of pattern myself after an author, if any. Growing up, I liked Hemingway, very short and sweet.
yeah,
Brevity was his thing, and I kind of liked that. I think that stuck a little bit with me.
yeah,
But yeah, I mean, I'm reading more and more, but and as I read, I'm trying not to be influenced too much.
yeah,
Your own voice there.
yeah.
And so when I was writing my novel, I tried not to read anything else and doing the research. You'd read articles, things like that to help give me information about, what a character might, do or say given the situation they were in. I tried not to be too influenced.
Yeah, it's hard to separate that yolk from the egg too, because we're all standing on the shoulders of giants. We're
Sure.
also influenced by what we see around us, you
No
know.
question. No
Um,
question.
so of all of the things that you've done, all the places you've been, all of the miles you've traveled, what are you the proudest of?
Oh, I think I'm most proud of my time in the Peace Corps training local staff to kind of take over our, which were formerly American positions. Uh, I don't know if you know the Central Pacific of Micronesia. At that time, it was a trust territory of the United States. There were six island groups, each with their own language and kind of culture, although there were a lot of similarities. To put it in perspective, if you imagine the Pacific like the United States, so I was living in Saipan, which would be like Seattle, and we had island, and we had Peace Corps volunteers serving like in Southern California and in Arizona and in Texas and in Maine and in Florida. So it was like 2,000 miles across. And so I would be on the plane all the time, traveling to each of those. And we had directors of each of those groups. And when I first was a volunteer there, they were all American positions. And I was involved with the training of local staff to take over those jobs. So I really felt proud that we could do that and kind of work ourselves out of a job.
Yeah. I every time I think about the Peace Corps, I think about how many things JFK did. Like that
Hmm.
was his vision. And there's so many things that he did that were along those lines that really did spread so much good throughout the world.
Oh, I think so. It's had its up and downs with the public, I think, and support. But it's back now and into new countries like in Vietnam. Can you imagine? When I
Yeah.
was a volunteer, we were fighting in Vietnam, and now we have Peace Corps going to Vietnam.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a positive step, I think,
Yeah.
uh, in terms of our history. So,
And it was amazing how many skirmishes the CIA wanted him to get into, like how the Bay of Pigs could have got out of control, and that could have been all out with Russia very fast,
oh
And
yeah,
at that time, we're just sending telegraphs, and we have to wait, It's just it's amazing, just what we survived at that point because there was such a Cold War tendency that was
oh
in the
yeah.
air.
Yeah, and I think there was a lot of people that thought Peace Corps were kind of spies, CIA linked, and that obviously was not true. But there was a skepticism, and you couldn't blame some of these countries for being skeptical.
Yeah,
Uh, but luckily, where I was, that was never the situation. In fact, during my time out there, those islands themselves were becoming more independent and became independent with a unique relationship with compacts of a free association with the United States. And if anything, I had to keep our volunteers out of politics there um, because, locals were giving out T-shirts, and I saw some of our volunteers wearing shirts, vote for whoever. And it was like, no, 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 take that off, take
yeah,
that off. We could be seen as, pro one side or the other. We're guests in
yeah,
these countries,
yeah,
and we can't piss off half the population, So,
absolutely.
so it was fun. It was a challenge during
Yeah.
those years, but very satisfying too.
Absolutely. So at the end of the day, Brad, everyone has a perception of you. Family, friends, your readers, everyone that you know, but you run the show. What's your perception of you? Who do you think you are?
Oh, I think I'm a person who's got a great sense of humor that's dedicated to kind of trying different things, not taking life too seriously,
Yeah.
seeing the fun in life, but trying to make a contribution wherever I can, while having fun, along the way. Um, I've got a, a website that has, in addition to all my books on there, I just put together a little quiz for folks to take that gets into kind of looking at their leadership. I called it, which of the four leadership temperaments are killing your career? And so it's a fun thing that people can take and get some feedback on, without having to talk to me or anybody else, just on their own.
Yeah.
But to me, it's a resource people can use to learn more about themselves. So I think for me, that's another thing I'm proud of, to make a contribution to folks without cost, without charging them anything, without having to take up their time, just being able to, like a book, it's out there. If you want to, of course, my book, you got to buy it,
Yeah.
but not my quiz. Huh.
Yeah.
So, that's kind of like how I feel, my contribution to society.
So where is that website? That's the good business I want to get to. If anyone wants your books or any of
Sure, it's www.braddude.com. Very easy. And it's got, like I said, it's got my books. It's got some of the places I've been, and lists a variety of ways of contacting me from, and different kinds of things, and got the quiz on it as well. So that's www.braddude.com.
So if you broke down my yearly words, dude would be top up on my list. How does one get the last name, dude?
Yeah, got to just be born into it. Everybody thinks it's a pseudonym, for my writing, but it's actually not. It's a German name, but there aren't many of us out there. But
Yeah.
yeah, but
I had to take a double take. When I looked down, I was like, is that what I think it is? So yeah, I love it. I absolutely love it.
my son is a policeman, so he says that's Officer Dude to you.
I love it. Brad, this has been great, man. Thank you so much for your time today. Best of luck. Have a great 2024.
Thanks, Joe. You too. I really appreciate the time.
Yes, sir. Thank you.